Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with 4 members of our Collective Action Mentoring Program. Today, the speakers will talk about their experience and their journey on the mentoring program and beyond, and also discuss how we can take this community of practice forward and work together more effectively. We have quite a diverse group here today, representing different regions of the world, but also different types of initiatives and different sectors. So this discussion promises to be very rich and insightful. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my first speaker, Noah. Noah is the director of the Canadian Centre of Excellence for Anti-Corruption. Noah was part of the first cohort to join the mentoring program in early 2022, and I believe he has a picture that he would like to show us. Sorry, I forgot the clicker. Super. Noah, can you tell us a bit more about this picture and how it relates to your work?
Okay, thank you, Lisa, and thank you to the Basel Institute for inviting me to speak today. This is myself and Ama, another member of the mentorship program, on the river in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire. So in order to get to the river, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story of how that picture came to be. And it was actually many years in the works. So we have to rewind back to 2015. And in 2015 in Canada, there were 2 problems in anti-corruption that were painfully obvious. One was that we had very low enforcement. And the second one was that there was a real lack of awareness of anti-corruption issues around the country. So that goes from large companies, SMEs, and even potentially in the public sector. So there were 3 individuals that put their heads together and said, how do we fix this problem? How do we address it? 2 of which you've probably met. My colleague Pat Poitvin and Marc Tassé are here. And they founded the Canadian Centre of Excellence for Anti-Corruption. The purpose of it, at the very beginning, was to be a collective approach to tackling those 2 problems of how do we raise awareness in order to increase enforcement. And so just by the nature of who started it, you had someone from law enforcement. So Pat had spent over 30 years with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Federal Police Service. You had a forensic accountant, and you had a lawyer. And together, there was also a connection with the university. So you also had academia. So with all 4 of those, we were able to basically create the center, which really was intended to basically do 2 things. One, reach out to youth, people studying in business programs, people studying in law, basically people that would end up in positions where they would be either within companies or advising companies on matters related to anti-corruption. And one of the very interesting projects that was started was a way to actually connect those students with SMEs that might not have had the resources, for example, to develop really complex compliance programs. So it was called the Global Anti-Corruption University Project, and it partnered students with an SME to essentially develop a compliance program as their academic project. Now, how do you oversee that? You have to have a community of experts. And so that was the second part of the Canadian Centre, was to ensure that there was, we had kind of a pool of experts to draw from that could help to advise students on what they needed to do in order to provide a quality program for a designated SME. And so we started collecting materials and expertise from experts throughout Canada, but also outside of Canada. And that continued to grow to the point where the Canadian Centre basically provided its own kind of resource guide and resource kit for people to access that would, again, ideally raise awareness of the issues surrounding anti-corruption. Now that we had that model, though, we also started to export that model to other countries. And so we've done projects in Ecuador, Indonesia, Tunisia, Paraguay, and as the picture mentions, Côte d'Ivoire. And one of the things that was very innovative, I think, was that we partnered also with the Trade Commissioner Service, who tends to advise Canadian SMEs that want to do business outside of Canada. And so in partnering with them, we were also able to basically provide that training and that expertise to those SMEs, not just in Canada, but also outside, and partner with people on the ground like Emma, but I will save that for later. So that's kind of the story from 2015, and then I'll come back to the picture afterwards.
Thanks very much, Noah, and we look forward to hearing more about the end of the story, actually. Now turning to Ken. Ken is the co-founder and board member of FAFP, the Fight Against Facilitation Payments Initiative, and he joined the mentoring program last year. I believe Ken would also like to present his work with a picture that we see here, and I believe it was taken in Basel a year ago. Ken, can you tell us a bit more about the story behind that picture and how it relates to your work?
Yeah. Thank you very much, and dear friends, thank you for having me here. Well, this looks like just a simple, normal group photo of a session. Everybody looks happy, and that's probably also the situation here. So this is from the Integrity Partners workshop last year. And what is not reflected here in this photo is an expression of my personality that was very prominent during the session. Those of you who know me a little bit better know that I'm a very frank and honest person. So I provided some feedback on the high level of the conversation, on the use of buzzwords, and the kind of like I was missing the tangibles of some of these discussions and initiatives that we had here. So I apologize to you if some of you were there. I remember this very clearly, but that's just the way I am, right? So. So being the frank and honest person, I would like to share a story with you. A story that I have not told in public before, a little bit special for me. I used to be the compliance officer of a multinational company, and as you probably all know, back in 2010, the UK government enacted the Bribery Act, which made it now very clear that facilitation payments were unwanted and even illegal. So all organizations had to revise their anti-corruption policies in order to reflect that, including the company I was working for. Facilitation payments. For me, I have a very clear definition of what is a facilitation payment, but I know from the last week or so, I've been in touch with several people that I will give you an example of what could be a facilitation payment. So imagine you are about to cross, or you are about to embark on a connecting flight in a country, and you are stopped at the border. They ask you to see your passport and see your visa, and everything is fine. You have the correct visa, you have the passport, it's not expired, it's valid, but still, there happened to be, according to the border control, there happened to be a problem here. And you cannot understand why is that, and they say you tell them that you have a connecting flight in half an hour, and anyway, fast forward. What they are trying to do here is to exploit that little piece of power, that way to kind of interfere with your process to make a little bit of money. It's not a bribe per se, because you are not getting something that you're not entitled to, but of course it is a problem. This goes on in other areas as well. So coming back to my story, I got a phone call one morning. It was from our logistics department. They said that they were doing a tender, and they have received some quotes from different suppliers of logistic services. And on some of them, there was a line where it says facilitation payment fees. So what to do about that? And I said, well, walk away, say no, all of that. And they said, yeah, but okay, we don't have that many options here. They all have it on this offer they send in. So I said, you have to go back and work with them. So they did, and they came back to me, and then they said, yeah, okay, it's no longer there. Right, yeah. Anyway, so that left me in the feeling of being quite alone, because I could not figure out what to do about this problem. As a company, I was helpless, and I also was very frustrated because I wanted to live up to the law and also get rid of these facilitation payments. So that actually marked the birth of FAFPI at that time, because I contacted the Danish government, and I contacted the Danish Confederation of Industries, and I asked them, what can we do about this? And together with the Confederation of Danish Industries, we gathered other businesses and NGOs that were in the same situation, and then we actually started FAFPI. So I don't know where I am time-wise.
You have 1 more minute?
1 more minute.
If that's okay.
Excellent. Right. So just short on FAFPI, what we do is we collect evidence, demands for facilitation payment. Demands is very important. So we collect that so that we have evidence that we can use to make an impact. So we can actually go and show people where are the problems, in what types of situations are the problems, what is the magnitude of the problem, and we can use this data in all kinds of situations. And to that extent, we were now a collective action at that point, supporting both SDGs 16 and 17. So we were very happy about that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ken, and thank you for pointing the feeling of being lonely. Because I know it's a bit of a red thread in that panel, and we'll get back to that later. Now turning to Joe. Joe is the chairperson of the multi-stakeholder group of COST, the Infrastructure Transparency Initiative in Malawi. Joe also joined the mentoring program in 2022 as part of the second cohort. Joe, can you tell us what you're holding in your hands?
Thank you, and hello everybody. I should start by thanking the Basel Institute and the Collective Action team for inviting me to be part of this conversation. When you see me, you are looking at a private sector player. When you see me, you are actually looking at a practicing contractor, a business player in the private sector, yet sticking his head out to push the governance agenda. When you see me, you are looking at a mentee of the Collective Action Program. My journey started way back with Collective Action, started way back in January 2018. Actually, I was overwhelmed with anxiety as well as excitement when I saw Gemma yesterday doing her preamble before the presentation of the awards, because Gemma was actually part of the team that brought me into Collective Action way back in Aswan, Egypt, 2018. Now, that picture was taken in South Africa. The truth of it is that, yes, I'm holding an award, but it's not my award. That award belonged and belongs to COST Uganda, who themselves saw merit in delegating me to receive it on their behalf, for the sole reason that it was I who in 2013 brought this COST governance program to their country. It means we have come this far as a collective action. I chair, as Liza said, a global governance program initiative aimed at increasing and promoting transparency and accountability in publicly financed infrastructure projects. I chair a collection of 13 like-minded institutions pushing the governance agenda. But wait a minute, out of the 13, I am the only member from the private sector. Not that the private sector in my country has not been invited, no, but it's because business players out there are not ready to stick their neck out in this transparency agenda. Why did I then stick my neck out? I believe, and rightly so, that you don't promote an anti-corruption war single-handedly. You need to do it as a team. And not participating in the mentoring project or program was not going to be a wise idea. It started as a one-on-one conversation, and then later on we used to have group meetings, physical and virtual, for the sole purpose of supporting, equipping, training us to be well energized to carry the transparency and anti-corruption agenda collectively. And the collective action resonates very well with the project, with the initiative that I chair in Malawi, the COAST program, which has 4 pillars, namely disclosure, assurance, social accountability, and stakeholder involvement. You don't push anti-corruption fight single-handedly, and because of collective action, we have managed to score and make strides, including bringing information, infrastructure information closer to the people. Do I still have time?
I'm afraid not.
But all in all, that's collective action for you, and yours truly continues pushing and pushing, and I guess the sky is the limit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe, and of course you'll get the opportunity to continue later. Thank you very much, and also thank you for highlighting the importance of working as a group, as a team, and the importance of peer learning and learning from others, which is also at the heart of collective action itself. So we'll get back to your story a bit later. Oscar, last but not least, you are the president of the board of directors of Entrepreneurs for Integrity. You traveled all the way from Peru to be here with us today. And you don't have a picture, but you do have a map that we will see in a second. Over to you.
Yes, I'll try to explain why I follow your instructions. Actually, this is 4 different angles of the picture of 33 million people that live in Peru. And I wanted to share why we are doing what we are doing. This picture portrays exactly what happens when business and politicians get together to not do the right thing for the people, but for their own benefit, which is exactly what Francois was explaining brilliantly in his opening statement. In Peru, in the last 30 years, since 1992, the economy grew 3.5 times. Employment grew more than double. Poverty, we were an example of fighting poverty. Monetary poverty decreased 60% before the pandemics. And most importantly, the resources, the size of the resources, the budget, the national budget, increased by 37 times in that period of time. So we had more than enough resources to make sure that we have the proper health, the minimum services of water and sewage for the people in Peru, that we don't have kids with anemia, and that our kids that go to school have the opportunity to learn to further develop in life. However, that didn't happen. The maps, the red color means that we have very relevant social gaps in health in any dimension. Here we're looking at the number of doctors per 10,000 people. We have serious gaps in that area. In terms of water, something that when you go to your houses, to the hotel, is very common to open the water to drink it. We have an issue in Peru. We are the 8th country with water resources, but our people doesn't have water, doesn't have potable water, water that they can drink. And that's one of the reasons why kids have anemia. That's explained 50% of the reasons why we have more than 40% of our kids from 5 to 36 months have anemia. And when you have anemia at that age where you are building your connections in your brain, then when you go to school, you don't learn, you don't develop. And that's what we have. Only 1 of 10 kids, less than 1 of 10 kids in our country, when they get to secondary school, they have a relatively acceptable result in reading and math. Only 1 over 10. The best region out of 25 is almost 2 out of 10, and the worst has 1 out of 100. That's terrible. That's our human capital. That's why I use this picture to mobilize the private sector, but also the public sector and civil society, that we need to fix this, that we can not tolerate more the corruption levels that we had our country, especially, and I have to say it, excuse me, Rafael, after Odebrecht came to Peru. It was the first international operations. No? They didn't invent corruption. We already had that. But these rich levels that are portrayed here, we had all the resources to close these gaps. However, Pan American Games were invented, large gas projects became from $1 billion project to $7 billion projects after financing a campaign. And that money went to the wrong places instead of going to the right places to close the social gaps. That's why we created Business for Integrity. From the private sector side, we started promoting certification of the anti-corruption models for large companies in the different sectors. Then we realized that this is a problem for more people. We included SMEs in our value chains, being sensible that they need to work each hour, that they don't work, they don't produce. So we did all digital, asynchronic, so they can do it at the time that they best suit their needs. And then we realized that it's not enough to focus on the private side. We need to take care of what's going on the other side. It takes two to tango. So we are also involved creating alliances with USAID, with the German cooperation through GIC, through Alliance for Integrity. We became the national hub this year. And we have been working together with social society to try to promote trust around public investment. In each region, 5 to 10 projects, very selective, so we make sure that they go right since the beginning till the end, on budget, on quality, so we can create trust with the population and close the gaps. So we are really focused in getting those results. Civil society plays an important role, monitoring, accompanying. There are their projects for the benefits of their cohabitants. So that's the way we have activated these coalitions to achieve this level of results. But the important thing is the why.
It is. Thank you very much, Oscar. And actually, I wanted to start with you for the first round of questions. So you've only joined the mentoring program this year, but you've been engaged and involved in multiple other groups, including regional ones, just like you mentioned, you're the AFIN regional hub for Latin America. Can you tell us a bit more about how it has been like being part of multiple groups, and also the importance of having a regional approach to collective action?
Yes, thank you. I want to take care of time. Another big issue around corruption is what happens with the SMEs that are commercial businesses, the ones that sell bread, small grocery stores, beauty parlors, any type of restaurants. They are subject to extortion from criminal organized crime. They are subject to inspections and the request for bribes. They are subject to the municipalities' licenses and permits. Their life is a nightmare. We're talking about millions of small businesses. So the Basel Institute of Governance approached us like 4 years ago, and we said we're not ready. We're getting ready with the first project that I just mentioned before. And we have been working with Andrea Prieto. She has been great. She's around here. I saw her. And we defined a very ambitious project that started a couple of months ago, by the way, very fast, building trust with the business associations, 15 business associations of SMEs that are subject to the same problem. And we brought ideas. I spoke with Ken, for example, that brought a great idea around gathering data so we can show how terrible is the lives of millions of people, the daily work life of millions of people. So we are doing some of that. So we are fighting on the legal side to try to eliminate barriers to doing business, change certain policies, but also we are doing training so they can defend themselves where they are being, they get an inspector, and we are going to be gathering data learned by the experience that can share with us. We are having a conversation and a dialogue to see if we can still use your global database, repository, and process, because it doesn't make sense to replicate each time that we want to do a solution. So hopefully we are going to find a solution on that. We want to make sure that we can bring legal assistance, that we can have an observatory, and that we can start generating political noise. So the lords of the municipalities understand that they are there with the vote of the people to serve the people, not to serve themselves and have kind of a machine of generating revenues for the municipalities. No? So we want to create a certain environment where we get back to the basics of serving the people and making proper changes. No? So that's an area that we are working. And the other one is education. No? Somebody was mentioning yesterday, we need to start making the right cultural changes for the new generations. In our country, corruption has been there from decades, who knows, centuries. So we need to start working at higher education. We are launching, actually on Thursday, I'm getting back this afternoon to Lima, we're launching a curricula of 5 courses, the result of a coalition collaboration of USAID, Alliance for Integrity, and GIC, and some courses that we created in the previous project with a curricula of citizenship, no excuses to be corrupt, how to understand the legal matters and responsibilities, and how you can prevent corruption, how you can start with a code of ethics, and one more course that I don't remember, but we're going to be launching that for the whole education system in Peru. We have discussed with all the business associations, private, public, to be able to launch this. And finally, we just started something that I'm going to touch base in my next intervention, which is something that I want to bring to your attention. The advance and growth of illegal activities is very dangerous, especially in the Amazon of Peru, Brazil, Colombia, and Ecuador. It's terrible. The last that is growing beyond drug trafficking is illegal mining. Because of the price of minerals, especially gold, but also copper, the size of that economy is growing significantly, and is creating a big threat to democracy and institutionality, because they are getting into politics. No, and they are bribing, and they are buying, and they are supporting politicians that are supporting their illegal activities, so we cannot fight them as we need to do it. But I'm going to get back on the next intervention on that one.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Oscar. And actually, Joe, I would like to ask you the same question. How important it is for you to have a regional approach to collective action? Because like you mentioned on the picture, you came to our Southern African Collective Action Forum. And so how being connected and exposed to other initiatives from your region has helped you overcome some challenges you were facing in Malawi?
Thank you. The regional approach and the regional involvement has helped to equip me and us, and as an organization, as an initiative, has helped us and equipped us to deliver, to engage, the art of engagement. It has also helped to build capacity within us on how we approach delicate offices, delicate situations, and in so doing, we have managed to get traction of the anti-corruption drive amongst stakeholders. We have managed to secure buy-in. We've managed to secure trust. For example, I can cite some achievements before I dive into the challenges. Some achievements that we've made is that through the initiative, because of the regional engagements where we've been equipped, we are able to move an extra mile, empowering CSOs to speak objectively on anti-corruption war. We've built capacity even among procuring entities, media practitioners, and we are quickly and fast securing buy-in from the general citizenry. Through our initiative, through the COST program in Malawi, we were even able to play a role in the review and improvement of the procurement law. And I'm also proud to say the project which I chair has found its way into the presidency. The presidency has an office or a department called the Presidential Delivery Unit. It was not easy to penetrate and find ourselves a place, but as we speak now, the COST program is one of the milestones or tools that is used by the Presidential Delivery Unit to monitor and track flagship infrastructure program. Thanks to the current president, who actually within his busy schedule has actually hosted us 4 times in the past 2 years, just to appreciate and get at the bottom of how our program is being done. By the way, we have also managed to establish an information portal. I was very worried yesterday when at our exhibition table, not many picked the leaflet that's there, but it's a loaded leaflet. It's 1 page, but it is giving you the portal ippi.mw, where you can access most of the infrastructure projects happening in my country, uploaded willingly by MDAs, courtesy of the collection collective action project. We have managed to bring information closer to the citizens through that portal. I guess by any standard, that is an achievement. Challenges, yes, quickly, challenges that are there. The problem or the challenge of not having many or adequate numbers of private sector players, it is a challenge. Challenge of being perceived as witch hunting when you're promoting transparency, it's a challenge. And the challenge of finances to take this agenda far and wider, it's a challenge. But then, because of the regional interfaces, we have been able to share and learn from each other, and that has equipped us to carry the message far and wide. I need to also appreciate that by encouraging each other at regional level, we have managed also to train, sensitize each other that through collective action, you share the risk. And you may ask, what are the risks? The risks of animosity, for example, the risks of a misplaced propaganda about the anti-corruption drive. When you spread that risk, slowly, stakeholders begin to understand that the anti-corruption drive is not a bad idea at all. It is actually aimed at ensuring value for money in infrastructure projects, for example. It also is aimed at ensuring that the local citizenry gets infrastructure constructed at appropriate costs. Lastly, on the challenges, I need to mention that it is not fun to be on the driving seat in the anti-corruption battle, especially when you're a private sector like myself. You need a united voice for you to be understood very well, that you are not on a witch hunting spree. I know what I'm talking about. I have gone through a lot. In my chairmanship, for example, I have seen and survived 4 political administrations with different ideologies, with different approaches to governance. But I've still survived. Why? I get my energy, I get energized and inspiration from institutions like Basel, institutions like Oscar and Ken. I get inspiration from people like Gilbert, who was honest enough to delegate me to receive the award on their behalf. I get inspiration from people like you in this room, because together we can deliver. Single-handedly, you fail. Thank you.
I think we can applaud that. Thank you very much, Joe, for this very inspiring speech. No, it's great, and I think it also speaks volume to you, Ken, and Noah, and also to the audience, because we know, again, how lonely it can feel to fight corruption in difficult contexts, especially as a CSO, but also as a private sector representative. So Ken, you joined FAFP when the initiative was relatively young, if I'm not mistaken. So can you tell us about your journey on the mentoring program, and again, how being exposed and connected with different initiatives from all around the world has helped FAFP's work?
Yeah, right. So, thank you. That's, you know, I mentioned before that I felt alone, and then we got connected into this network that it was in the beginning, FAFP, and I did no longer feel alone, but you know, we were trying to figure out how to develop this collective action, and we felt you know, insecure. We were not certain how to do it in the best way. And we didn't have a lot, I will mention later, one particular collective action that inspired us. But then we were, we were nominated in 2022, and we came to Basel, and met a lot of you there, and as you just mentioned, Joe, I got really energized by that. So we were no longer alone. We were now also part of a bigger group, and I think that was very interesting. So we got invited to this mentoring program, and boy, did I have really high expectations because I have worked with some of you before, and so I think for me it was impossible to meet those expectations. So in the beginning I got a little bit impatient. I wanted things to move, and it didn't move as quickly as I wanted. So my coming back to the group photo before about that 2023 workshop, so my good friend and colleague from Grundfos, Lene Lauritsen, she said to me, calm down, it's fine, it's going to be fine. And so I calmed down, and I adjusted my expectations, right? And I started much more, which is very important. I know, very embarrassing. I started to listen more. And I learned a lot from that. I got all of the inspiration you talked about, Joe, starting to flow in. The meetings we have had in the mentoring program have increasingly provided more and more different lenses on what we are doing in a collective action and how it can be done. Looking at different models for governance, for organization of the collective action, for funding of the collective action. So we learned a lot. We are learning a lot through the mentoring program, and also developing over time a wonderful, great, knowledgeable network. And as you know, building a network takes time. It's not something you just, I want to be in a network with this person, this person, this person, this person, and then you have a network. No, it develops over time, and that also something that is being supported by the mentoring program and this community in general, right? So I want to end up on a high note here, the true community feeling that I have felt and I am feeling. Particularly, as you said also here, Joe, give that energy. Oscar reached out to me and said, I want to know more about what you're doing. And I also want to know what I can do to help you in Peru. I was kind of, okay, yeah, I'm into that. So we set up a call, and we had a very, very, very nice conversation. And that just kind of made a very big difference in my head, because Oscar came up with some ideas how we could organize, how we could get things going. And apparently I also inspired Oscar back, so that's really a win-win situation. But also I would say that this is also about developing ambassadors. We are ambassadors for each of our collective actions, right? So here on my right side is an ambassador for FAFPI that came about in this group. And actually, as Noah was out in the field doing his work, he understood that there was a need for something that FAFPI provides, and then he was happy to share his knowledge about FAFPI, and that ended up in a very now we have a new relationship here with the Canadian Red Cross, and we are very happy about that. So yeah, thank you very much for that. So this is the high note.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we can also applaud that. Thank you very much, Ken. And I guess it's a perfect segue to Noah's presentation. I think you wanted to finish your story about Abidjan. And also, I know the network element is really important for you and for your initiative. And so can you tell us a bit more about that and how and the benefits, of being part of the community of practice?
Yeah, thank you. I'll build off what the other my other colleagues have said, but I think what ended up happening in Canada is, as Pat was riding around on his horse trying to raise awareness, we'd occasionally have phone calls, and we'd express this sense that we kept encountering this complacency, right? And there was just this, when you encounter complacency and you're putting all your effort into something, and you're not quite always feeling the returns, it does give you that sense of kind of isolation, right? So I don't want to say loneliness, but I will say isolation, because I think we have a bit of a different situation in Canada where we're kind of geographically isolated, right? We don't have really a regional, a natural kind of regional area. But through that, what ended up happening was then we'd start working abroad, and it started to become like we were away when we were at home, but when we were at home when we were away, right? Like we started encountering people that really kind of believed in the mission and believed in what we were doing. And so the thought of that then was, instead of constantly swimming upriver at home, let's see if we can kind of float downriver and engage with more people that are invested in the same kind of things that we are in different places. And so that's how I think we became part of the mentorship program, was really that, looking for that community, that anti-corruption community that was really doing kind of grassroots work. And so where it comes back to with the photo in Abidjan with Ama is, when you do work abroad, you have to understand the place that you're doing work in. That's really a core component of having success. And the best way to do that is to know people on the ground. And that provides you really with a lot of knowledge that you can then have success. So through the mentorship program, Aman was here the last time around, and we had met and we had briefly chatted. And I think 2 months later, when I found out I was going to be in Côte d'Ivoire, the first phone call I made was to Aman and said, look, this is the project, this is what I'm working on. In order to do a good job of this, though, like I want to hear from your perspective. What's it like? What's it like on the ground as someone who's trying to raise awareness in Côte d'Ivoire, who's working with young people, and who's trying to build trust amongst a young population in terms of turning things around and having people focus on a much less corrupt society. So that's how I ended up on the river in Abidjan, and that's what we were discussing. We were just talking about the project and talking about life on the ground there. And the other way it came about, just to build off of Ken's, what Ken was saying, it was interesting that I think the community of practice, what's really amazing is you find out that there are these connections, right? You don't know when they're going to pop up, but they exist. And so, again, I was just doing a presentation on, the anti-corruption legal framework in Canada to the Canadian Red Cross, and beforehand, I just asked them if there was anything in particular they were interested in, and the one thing that they said was, yeah, if you can tell us a bit about facilitation payments and stuff, like we always have staff that are in the field that are encountering these demands for facilitation payments. And without a lie, like my first thought was, I know a guy, and here's the guy right beside me, and that's all because of the community of practice, right? So I think it was really meaningful, and I think through that we were able to help another organization solve one of the problems that they had. So I think that's really one of the ways that collective action can be very useful.
Thank you very much, Noah. And it's also great to be the voice of the mentees who couldn't be here today. That's also the spirit of the community of practice. If we were to take some, highlight some takeaways from this round of questions, I think collective action is about, it takes time. You cannot do it alone. You just have to do it, but you cannot do it alone. It takes also context sensitivity, because there's no one-size-fits-all for collective action, and maybe that also you're one phone call away from a promising project like you just showcased. So now, if we were to take a step back and look into the future, how can we move forward effectively to establish a more structured community of practice, and how can we foster a community of practice that represents the interests of the collective action practitioners? And for this round of questions, I would like to start with Joe, because during our panel presentation, you mentioned something about crafting a new language and also taking the collective action agenda far and wide. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, looking at the future, my wish would be using the collective action agenda far and wider, taking it far and wider, but one might ask how? Well, by identifying more like-minded institutions and individuals, encouraging them, motivating them, that they include collective action and budget lines in their governance programs, to craft persuasive language to secure buy-in. Because if truth be told, at least from where I sit, I can contend that collective action should be the in thing in modern advocacy, especially in the anti-corruption agenda. For those who breathe, dream, and live transparency, they will need resources to carry the message far and wide. There's need for financial resources. I believe that collective action is not a mere ideology. You have to practice it. To sustain the momentum, to rope in more players, the youth, academia, and the business community, to bring the anti-corruption gospel far and wide, we need resources. But then, the other question is, where are the youth in this agenda? The students. Bring them in. That's the way I'm looking at the future. Because there is merit in collective action. Collective action is a powerful catalyst in the anti-corruption fight. If indoctrinated in the youth, we can be assured that we will groom a generation of integrity, professional and ethical behavior. So let us promote the youth. But to do that, we need resources. We need more Siemens groups. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much, Joe. And it's true that we don't talk about the youth enough in the collective action agenda. Thank you so much for recalling the importance of bringing them in the game. Oscar, any thoughts on that? How can we rationalize the efforts, especially the multiple communities of practice that already exist? How can we all work together better and more effectively?
Sure. First, I think we're not alone. It's clear we're not alone, not only here, but in this room. A lot of good people doing good things. Yes. This is very important. And I haven't been feeling alone for quite some time since I started working around collective actions and working with other organizations. I want to start by bringing to the attention of this group my last point in my previous intervention. Illegal economies are acting in a collective action. The narco-traffics, illegal logging, illegal mining are working together with organized crime. Terrorism as well, because we have some presence of terrorism, not only Sendero Luminoso, but also we have found people from Hamas and people in the jungle. We try to find out why. There's that connection, but there's something going on there, and we think it is the biggest threat. They are the first corrupting force. Definitely, all the police, armed forces, politicians, judiciary, they can buy everything, anything, because it's money or bullet. So it's very difficult. No? So we really need to get together to fight illegal economies. It's a global fight that we need to start working together. Hopefully, it's going to be on the agenda of the next meeting, but most especially on the actions that we need to work together. The Amazon of Peru, Colombia, Brazil is not only of the people that live there for our countries, is for all the world, is the second or one of the two lungs of the world and belongs to us. We need to protect it and do the right thing. On your question, I think that I come from the consulting business. I think there's an opportunity to share more best practices, probably do a repository, make it easier for the practitioners to try to have the information on the experiences and who to contact to not reinvent the wheel, though there are some cultural differences and some similarities. We can get some great ideas. With some adjustments, we can implement to the local problems that are very similar. We can build networks of practitioners by sectors, by themes. Also, I think that we can probably move to the next level there. So I think there are opportunities in that sense. And I would like to close with one reflection that is going around my head, and I need to put it out. Sometimes creates problems when I speak out what I think, but I think it's relevant. I think we also need to get together to make sure that there's remediation after big, severe corruption scandals and impact. In Peru, we are the only country in the world with 5 or 6 presidents. We just lost track. All ex-presidents except one that was not elected, give a constitutional succession, are in prisons or being in a judiciary process. But we don't have private sector people in jail. They pay fines and they don't go to jail. So that's terrible. That's a terrible signal for building trust. That's a terrible signal for the people that have been affected and for the private sector credibility. So we need to make sure that we follow up on what's going on with the judiciary and put this topic on the table. I expect to see also business people doing jail time, not only paying the fines with the money that they stole from the citizens. So we need to fight for that as well. Because, just to close, integrity builds trust, and trust strengthens democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Thank you very much, Oscar. Ken, any thoughts on that, and how can we move forward and build a more structured community of practice?
Right. Yeah. So I guess there is what we experienced is that we have an internal FAFPI, internal collective action development going on, and we see that the collective action we started is not the collective action we will see next year, because we change, the society change, the challenges somewhat change. I mean, they're also somewhat the same. We are moving into a new strategy period, and one of the things that we experience is that we need to keep focus. What I have experienced and made me sometimes a little bit frustrated was that a lot of people here I see that the people that are here represented here are people that want to do good. And from the heart, we all want to do good, and we envision that and dream that, and then we go for it. But sometimes we have too large of a scope. We want to do too much. We want to do all steps in the process, and I think that sometimes leads to then that we do nothing, because it becomes impossible to do everything. So in FAFPI, we will focus on recording, providing the evidence, the data, and that's what we do. I think that will be our next strategy move. So in terms of the community and the collective action, I would really love to see more research done in this field, so that we can get, for example, we can get solid definitions We can get a usable taxonomy that we can use for different purposes here. I had the pleasure of getting a little bit of information into some of the work that is doing here in the Basel Institute, and I really appreciate that. We need more of that so that we can learn how the good models, the organizational model, the governance models, the funding models, what's actually working, right? And I would like to use this opportunity to coin a term. I think that's, how do you say?
Yeah.
Yeah? I don't know. I'm from Denmark, so I don't know. English is not my main language. So I will now coin a term. Collective action impact chain, right? Mm-hmm. What we would like to be in FAFPI, we would like to be part of an impact chain among collective actions. We realize that we can collect the data, but it's not realistic that we are going to Ghana and really make a change on the ground in Ghana, or we go to Vietnam and make a change there. We need to team up with other collective actions that are present there and have an understanding of what's happening there. So we will be the providers of information, of data that can be used to make an impact. On the other side, we would also probably, because we need a lot of data, it's not having 10 or 100 reports per year. That would not make any difference at all. We need a lot of data. So the reach that we have to the supply, I'm sorry about using the term supply of data, we also need to have some partners that we can partner up with to get that data. So if you start thinking about this, how we can work together, not in a loose coupled setup, but more kind of like connected in reality, so that you can depend on FAFPI to deliver data to you that you can then use to go do whatever you do, whatever you find right. If it is Oscar that wants to take the data and use it in Peru, I would love that. I would love that. So, collective action impact chain.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ken, for coining the term. For coining this new term, collective action impact chain. That's great. I'm just mindful of the time. Noah, if you had one wish for the future of this collective action community of practice, what would it be?
I'll borrow 2 words from Ken and Joe, but Joe mentioned resources, Ken mentioned impact. Mm-hmm. And I think in order for all of us to have the most impact possible, we need to have adequate resources. And the unfortunate thing that I think many of us have noticed and we've talked about on the calls is that it's a constant struggle to go out and find those resources. And so what I would love to see is, as Joe mentioned, more Siemens. And I don't mean that like from Siemens. I mean more types of Siemens initiatives that exist. Because, but I mean, it's, the reason we're in this room is because of the resources that were provided to make this happen. And I think that's fantastic. So my wish is that if we can find a way for enforcement actions, whichever country that those enforcement actions happen in, if we can take a portion of the amount of those fines that are issued to then help fund grassroots anti-corruption work, that would be my ultimate wish, and I see no reason why not. I mean, Airbus was fined in the billions of dollars, right? Hopefully we can just put a bit of that aside, and that would help us all.
Thank you very much, Noah, and I think it's the perfect way to introduce the next panel. I think it's the perfect way to introduce the next panel on the role of development finance institutions in promoting business integrity. But before closing the panel, I would like to open the floor for questions to the speakers, but also if anyone wants to share their experience in being part of a collective action or anti-corruption platform, please raise your hand. I see a hand that was raised. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
If you could just introduce yourself before asking the question, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm Josephine from the Global Compact Network Indonesia. Well, first of all, thank you so much for this dialogue. I really learned a lot from this. Now, one thing I would like to address again on the facilitating payment. Just briefly, so I was put in a situation. My boss asked me to do a kind of a permit. And to make a story short, I was asked to pay a facilitating payment. I went back, I didn't pay. I went back and told my boss, don't ever ask me to do these kind of things again. I don't want to do it. So what he did, he hired an agent to make it kind of legal, quotes, unquote, because I think the law is not clear. The gray area, how you would like to expedite the process. And the message that I got that it's okay, to pay a facilitating payment to expedite process. At the time, there wasn't clear law or regulations on that. So we did hire agent to make it legal, right? But I think, much later, then the law changes. Just an example, like, if you would like to get a visa. So normal visa will take, let's say, 2 weeks. Because you have an urgent needs, then you need like only 3 days. If the law says, okay, then, make it a law, right? So we pay for the expediting, what we call expediting payment, and make it transparent, right? So rather than we make a facilitating payment to make it kind of illegal, we cannot do it, so we hired an agent. So I think, these things, I think I really like your idea, to what you call it, collective action impact change among collective actions. So when I go back to my country, I think I would like to, do these kind of things. So I like to give an applause. Thank you so much for such a, inspiring and then benefiting sessions that you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe we'll take another question before, or do you want to answer it now? Yeah. Is there any other question? Yes. Just one here. Kunan, yeah. And then we'll close the Q&A.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Kunan Rahman from Transparency International. Thank you so much for a wonderful round of discussions. Again, a lot to learn from our great peers here. But just a very quick question in terms of really building this community of practice as we go forward. We have an ever-evolving, dynamic, complex environment that we're faced with new sort of areas coming about. How can collective action initiatives stay agile and keep evolving with these new trends that are coming up? For example, linking with ESG, and at the same time, how can we really continue to build trust with those that already exist in this collective action initiative? So keep evolving, but building trust and ensuring that we all have the same sort of value system within these initiatives. So sorry for the complex question, but yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe, Ken, do you want to answer the first question, and then we'll ask the other speakers.
Yes, right. Thank you very much for that storytelling and also the dilemma, because I think we are all facing dilemmas quite often. And with dilemmas, there can be multiple, apparently right avenues to go, and then when you go, you find out it wasn't the right one. But actually, you know, I think the bringing on an agent is clearly, you know, a red flag, because we know that also in other situations. So that is, in my perspective, trying to, you know, avoid the problem. Definitely putting the fees on a menu, as I like to call it, would be a good solution. If it is a general legal setup, it would be a good solution, like going to Disneyland and you buy a fast-track ticket. It's kind of like a facilitation payment for your kids. They can go quicker on the rides. But that is a commercial legalized way of doing facilitation payments, I think. Whether or not it's legal or illegal, I would say for me the main problem here is that I have a strong belief that facilitation payments are the seeds of bribery and later on grander corruption. Because if you are, as a public official, are getting used to getting small amounts of money, then when you get into a higher position, you would want more money, and then you have power now, you can influence bigger decisions and eventually turn into bribery, eventually turn into big corruption scandals. So that is one of the reasons why we would really love to weed out all of these facilitation payments. I don't know if it answered the question. Thank you very much for the support.
Thank you very much, Ken. Does anyone want to answer the second question?
Yeah.
Joe, yeah, I saw you writing down some notes, so over to you.
Building trust is a very important aspect of the transparency and accountability agenda. The way we've done it in the Coast Malawi is, for example, at first when the initiative came, it was viewed as a witch hunt. Now we needed to carry a proper message to, for example, to ministries, departments, and agencies who are required to upload information on our information portal. So the message we crafted was like, this is an opportunity for institutions to exonerate themselves from propaganda fabrication so that they prove or demonstrate that they don't have any skeletons in the cupboard. It worked. And then to private sector, we said by uploading, by MDAs are ministries, departments, and agencies. In other countries, you call them PDEs, procuring and disposal entities. By them uploading information on our portal, on our information portal, it gives confidence and trust to the business community that, yes, now the playing field is leveled. That also builds trust. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. I think, does anyone want to answer the question? Because we're running out of time, but feel free for one last answer.
In 5 words, I just agree. You know, trust is all about dialogue, right? So I think you know, things like this where there's calls amongst practitioners in different areas, and you can just share your experience really helps with that.
Great. Oscar, do you want to give it a try?
Well, just to add something, is focus on impact, you know, as Ken was saying, prioritize, try to get some quick wins. You know, people have been waiting for the basic services, and they hear about the economy growing, the big numbers playing well, but they don't feel it, they don't see it. So I think that we need to bring solutions, concrete solutions to our people, and with that, we start building that trust.
Thank you very much, Oscar. And we're going to close the panel now. Please feel free to continue the discussion during the coffee break, and I'll invite the audience to help me thank the speakers.